Now adjourn. Anneliese Dodds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise to highlight the case of the Ultimate Picture Palace in my constituency, which shows the need for government support for community assets. The Ultimate Picture Palace is the only remaining independent cinema in Oxford. Founded in 1911, the cinema shows an eclectic mix of independent, international and classic films, all in its cosy single-screen auditorium. This beautiful cinema is a real landmark on Jeune Street, abutting Cowley Road, in the heart of East Oxford. It was built when dangerously flammable outdoor screenings were being replaced by safer buildings. The heritage of tented outdoor shows is clear in the beautiful Art Deco building, not least with the original box office window that opens straight out onto the street. The team of staff and volunteers who run this cinema is small but passionate. In 2022, the cinema became community-owned when 1,200 local people took a stake in it. It's a vibrant place, defying national trends in ticket sales. At a time when thousands of community assets have closed, the UPP stands as a reminder that a different model is possible, and that model works. The UPP aims to be a leader in community cinema, empowering local people to determine the future of this neighbourhood venue and enabling all local residents, from families to young people, students, workers and community groups, to be uplifted through the joy of cinema. They've hosted numerous festivals and really do cater for all. Last year, the UPP screened the widest variety of films of any cinema in the city, as well as attracting new audiences by, for example, introducing special Kino Kids screenings for kids and the development of a new education programme. The cinema's relaxed and welcoming atmosphere means that anyone can come and enjoy a film, whether they're on their own or with friends and family. I've heard many wonderful stories about how this small community cinema has shaped local people's lives. One of the most moving was hearing of a New Year's Eve screening 50 years ago when a resident who'd moved to Oxford previously finally felt at home in my city. Dame Pippa Harris, co-producer of Oscar-winning film Hamnet, came to the UPP as a young person and says, "Big dreams started in that little cinema, and I'm lucky my dream came true." Perhaps my favourite quote about the cinema comes from the sadly late, true Oxford original Bill Heine, when he said of his approach to the cinema when he ran it, "Look, if you're going to sail, why not sail in dangerous waters? Who wants to play around on the beach?" The UPP has a truly incredible storied history, from legal fights with Stanley Kubrick and the BBC to the Section 6 squatted cinema, right through to today's community ownership. So that this special cinema is fit for the future, it needs to invest in better access, sightlines and sound quality, and more efficient use of energy. The cinema has planning permission for these changes, and funders keen to support them if funders' requirements for a long-term lease are met. But herein lies the problem, Madam Deputy Speaker. The landlord for this community-owned asset, Oriel College, will not commit to such a long-term lease. This is because it appears the building is in the footprint of their plans for a fifth quad to accommodate graduate students. The idea of the cinema being used for this purpose strikes me and local residents as very strange. The building is Grade 2 listed, reflecting its historical status and striking exterior and interior. It's one of the oldest independent cinemas in England and the only one which is community-owned. Very happy to.
Madam Deputy Speaker, first of all, can I commend the Honourable Lady for Oxford East for bringing this forward? Spoke to her beforehand, and she's right to outline the issues for our own cinema and the community-based importance. But does she not agree that community-owned assets are essential in our quest to address the hidden barriers such as transport poverty, social isolation amongst the elderly and digital exclusion? There's much more than just the cinema, but it goes beyond that prevent rural residents in Oxford East, but also my constituency of Strangford, from accessing essential community and health services, compared sometimes to their urban counterparts. Now, the support for these assets are not limited to one community group or another, but to entire populations who rely on them. And as such, government help at their time of need. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I absolutely agree with the honourable member for Strangford that, of course, community-owned assets so often really are targeted at those inequalities because the community understands where the challenges are on their streets, in their backyard, down their lane. If we're talking about rural areas, they really understand where the need is. That's one of many reasons why they're so important. And of course, they're not only important for those communities, they can be nationally significant as well. And that's the case with this cinema, Madam Deputy Speaker, because the head of cinemas at the Independent Cinema Office has said that the UPP is of national importance. I and thousands of local residents have called on Oriel College to grant the cinema the long-term lease it needs. Indeed, a petition calling for this has gained nearly 20,000 signatures in a matter of weeks. This would be great for local students and could unlock exciting collaboration between the cinema and Oriel College. There are some brilliant examples of higher education institutions working with arts organisations in the UK, and such cooperation could make the UPP an even more special place. So far, Oriel College appears not to have recognised the potential benefits of engaging with the Ultimate Picture Palace in this way. So I urge them to reconsider and grant the UPP its long-term lease. And I urge the Government to recognise the value of community assets like the UPP and go further to protect them. Very happy to.
I thank my right honourable friend for giving way, and she's painting a beautifully evocative picture of the UPP, and it actually takes me straight to my favourite film, Cinema Paradiso. Does she agree with me that often communities deliver in a way that government cannot? They deliver according to local needs, what our communities need, what local people need in their local areas. But also they can act in a more agile way. They can often access different funding, but they need that initial support and the capacity to be able to grow their knowledge and experience in order to deliver.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm very grateful indeed to my friend for making that really important point. She's absolutely right. The flexibility that these community-owned assets often have really cannot be underlined enough, and the fact that they can respond to community needs is just one of so many positive aspects of these very special assets. And of course, community ownership shapes shapes who holds power within organisations and assets. It shapes who makes decisions about them and who benefits from them, like in the cases she was talking about.
Way, she's outlining a really clear case for community-owned assets. I wondered if she might be able to elaborate on this and tell us if the UPP is an asset of community value. We've recently just had to fight a campaign to stop Harrogate Spring Water chopping down the much-loved Rotary Wood, which is an asset of community value. If that planning decision had gone ahead and not been voted down, there would have been obviously a moratorium allowing the community to come together to put in a bid to try and purchase it. But there needs to be more support to make sure that those bids are prioritised and multinationals like Danone can't simply come in, swoop in and outbid a local community.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I absolutely agree with him that the asset of community value designation can be a really powerful tool. Yes, that has been applied in the case of UPP. That's something that the cinema itself and local people pushed for. I'm really pleased that the Council granted it. And I think the kind of developments that he mentioned are ones that we really need to be guarding against when we have those important community assets. And of course, one of the recent measures that the government has been working on, which will also help in this area, does relate to the community right to buy, which I know the Minister is really passionate about. Community right to buy is about giving local people the right to own and protect the places that matter to them, from pubs and parks to community centres and sports grounds. When communities have a real stake, like with the UPP, they don't just preserve assets, they make them thrive. This reflects a core cooperative belief, fundamental for the Co-op Party, of which I'm a member, that communities themselves are best placed to shape their future. But for vital shared spaces to exist, communities have always had to succeed despite the system, not because of it. And the current situation brings into sharp relief how many hurdles communities face in trying to take control of the places that matter most. What we've seen in the case of the Ultimate Picture Palace is just one example of the blockages facing community-owned assets. We know that elsewhere communities are not eligible for funding streams or tax relief, and that there often isn't the correct development support for those trying to pursue community ownership. So the community right to buy will mark a landmark shift, but we need to go further. And I know that the Co-op Party has argued for this. Yeah.
My honourable friend for giving way. It's a very persuasive argument that she's putting forward. In my constituency of Wolverhampton West, in Penn, where I live, we have the Old Stag's Head, which is a pub that closed down some time ago, and many efforts have been made for the community to purchase the pub to recreate again the community value that it provided. So does my honourable friend agree that when we talk about community assets, they can be quite widespread, like pubs and community centres and sports halls and so forth? So it is a very important topic that we are discussing, where government support can be so useful. Thank you.
Thank you, and absolutely, and I strongly agree with my honourable friend. He is completely right. We've seen in the past many campaigns to keep local pubs open. We've seen local people working really hard to deliver community asset designation, but ultimately often they've lacked the finance, and hopefully the new measures coming through will start to deal with that through, in particular, the right to buy and through other measures as well. I would also mention here the Community Wealth Fund, Pride in Place programme too. All of them tackle some of those inequalities, the lack of social infrastructure, including physical social infrastructure, and of course economic deprivation as well. But too often, as in the case of the UPP, we just see in these cases a David and Goliath style task for communities that want to be controlling local assets. So, in conclusion, I would like to urge the Minister to first coordinate policy on community assets with other departments so we can truly unlock their promise. Secondly, I urge her to work with colleagues in the Departments of Culture, Media and Sports and of Education and Skills to encourage place-based collaboration between arts and culture organisations and higher education providers.
Yes, happy to.
Thank her for giving way. The UPP sounds like an absolute cultural gem, and I absolutely love anything to do with arts and culture as a previous chair of an arts and culture organisation. I just wonder if she agrees, though, that the Town of Culture is a programme that the government has launched, and I think that would be an amazing way to bring people together. I wonder if she agrees that that is a really positive step forward, and if she will also get behind Bawtry being the first Town of Culture in the country.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm very fond indeed of my honourable friend, but I know there are many others who are pushing for their amazing towns to become the Town of Culture, and it is a really exciting new development. I completely agree with him, as well as what we're seeing in community ownership and engagement in arts and culture too. My third ask of the Minister is to invite her to please come to the Ultimate Picture Palace and experience the magic of cinema, with a friendly welcome, lovely drinks and snacks, and a dedicated team of staff and volunteers. I know if she comes, she'll experience what promoters of the cinema said it would deliver when it was built right back in 1911. Real fun and instruction in a beautiful building. Long live community cinema, and, Madam Deputy Speaker, long live the Ultimate Picture Palace. Thank you.
Minister, Miata Fambola.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank the Honourable Member for Oxford East for securing this debate and for speaking with such conviction about the importance of community-owned assets and for highlighting the importance of the Ultimate Picture Palace, which I do know, which is a treasured asset in her community. I know that she has been a long-standing champion for communities in her constituency, and I want to recognise the work that she has done to bring local voices into this House. And as a fellow cooperative member, I share her ambition, her passion and her commitment for community ownership and power. Look, community-owned assets matter because they aren't just buildings. They are places where people meet, organise, volunteer, learn and support one another. When communities lose them, they don't just lose bricks and mortar, they lose connection, they lose pride and opportunity. That's why this government believes strongly that communities should have more power to protect the places they value. The Honourable Member is seeing firsthand in Greater Lees, as it's one of the neighbourhoods receiving long-term funding and support through Pride in Place programme. That 10-year commitment reflects both the strength of the community and the challenges it faces, and it gives local people the certainty they need to plan ahead and to shape the area for the long term. Alongside the Pride in Place programme, the government has also introduced a Pride in Place Impact Fund. This fund is designed to provide rapid, visible improvements to community spaces, to public places and high streets in areas that need immediate support. Further, communities across the country are benefiting from that additional route for action where quicker intervention is needed. Together, these two approaches reflect a deliberate choice by this government to combine long-term, locally led change with the ability to respond quickly where urgent improvements are required. They serve different purposes, but both are rooted in the same fundamental principle of putting communities in the driving seat and fundamentally ensuring that communities are the ones that are deciding what is best for their area and their priorities for them.
I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Miata Fambula.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. But funding alone isn't enough, as the Honourable Member pointed out. Communities also need stronger rights. Too often, valued local assets are sold off, they're left empty or lost entirely, with residents having little say in the process. That's why this government is strengthening community power through legislation. Through the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill, we will introduce a new community right to buy, which the Honourable Member spoke about. This gives communities the first opportunity to purchase a registered asset of community value when it comes to sale. Communities will have more time to raise funds, access a fair and independent valuation, and rely on rights that carry real weight. I will give way.
I just want to acknowledge the fantastic work that she's outlining there by the government on this particular issue. Does she agree with me that one of the biggest worries that people have in areas that are undergoing local government reorganisation is that these cash-strapped councils are going to have to sell off those assets, and that often when you're having a merging of councils, that it can be further removed from local people on the ground? So does she agree that these steps will help give people that certainty in light of local government reorganisation?
Thank you to the Honourable Member for raising that question. Look, we've had this exchange at the dispatch box, and local government reorganisation was embarked upon by this government as a point of necessity, not because we either desired it or we thought that it would be fun to do so, because ultimately local government is under huge amounts of pressure. We absolutely need to get to local councils that are the beating heart of our communities, that are sustainable, that have a footprint that local people can recognise and can do the job of enabling our communities. And that is our firm intention through the local government process. But we recognise that alongside that, it is absolutely critical that we are building and supporting that community level, which is why in the English Devolution Bill we are introducing the rollout of neighbourhood governance, which is why through our Pride in Place programme we're fundamentally empowering communities, because we believe that they should be at the very heart of how we drive change in our places. And look, this is about making sure communities... I will give way.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Would the Minister agree that Pride in Place is a fantastic programme and it will help pubs like Save the Stag campaign in my constituency to buy their local pub, but Pride in Place hasn't reached all corners of the country yet? Will the Minister confirm that she will be looking at the way that Pride in Place extends and is calculated so that some areas like mine in Cornwall can also benefit?
Thank you to my honourable friend. And look, the two things I'd say is that there's a programme and we've just announced another 40 places. There are more parts of the country that are in need of support. And one of the things that we are very, very keen to do is to take the approach in Pride in Place, where we're essentially thinking about investment that is already going to places, but how you put communities in control of some of that investment so they can drive the priorities and they can ensure that the investment the government is making in every part of the country actually works for that community. So there is an approach that I think is fundamental to the way that government does things, where we say communities should be in the driving seat of driving priorities and ensuring the investment that is coming into their area is working in their interest. And look, the Pride in Place programme, as I've said, complements the rights we're giving to neighbourhood boards and the freedom to invest in community ownership and renewal. That might mean restoring a valued building. It might mean bringing empty spaces back into use. Whatever is the priority set locally, it has to be driven locally and not imposed from Whitehall. But I will give way.
Minister, for giving way. My concern about the impact of local government reorganisation and lack of money on community-owned assets is the fact that charities are entitled to a mandatory 80% business relief. The 20% is discretionary from local councils. Areas like mine, Woking, that have gone bankrupt means that community-owned assets and charities could be at the forefront of decisions. What steps is the Minister taking to support community-owned assets in councils like Woking and others that are struggling financially?
We are committed to working with all councils that we know under huge amounts of pressure to ensure that they are sustainable, but also to ensure that they can do the fundamental work that we need them to do to support and empower their communities. My colleagues in my department are working with individual councils that we know are facing a very, very difficult time financially, particularly in the context of local government reorganisation. But look, I think there is a bigger piece for us, which is we absolutely believe it is right to empower communities to take on assets. This is a principle that we believe in. We believe in cooperative ownership. We believe in community ownership. We are conferring rights to the bill in order to drive that forward. And we must continue building on that to make sure that we are allowing communities the wherewithal and the resources and the know-how to be able to exercise that right. So this is something that we're committed to doing and making sure that communities can take on assets and can maintain assets, because it is fundamental to our view of how we drive change in place. And look, ultimately, we are very clear that as a government, we were elected to do things differently. Business as usual is not working for too many of our communities. And that does mean moving away from short-term competitive bidding and towards longer-term locally led change. It means trusting our communities. It means backing their ideas and giving them the tools to succeed. So in closing, I thank my honourable friend again for raising this important issue. I thank her for speaking so eloquently and raising the importance of community ownership and community power. She's right to shine a light on this. We will continue to work through Pride in Place, through Community Right to Buy, but also by providing targeted support for urgent local needs so that we are ensuring that our ambition for communities is matched in practice and it's matched in reality. And as to my honourable friend's point about encouraging collaboration between arts and cultural organisations and higher education providers, this work has begun. We are working very closely with the Department for Culture, Media and Sports, as well as with the Department for Education, to make sure that we are aligned, and I will continue that collaboration as she has suggested. And I would absolutely love to accept her invitation to visit the Ultimate Picture Palace. I think it will probably be the highlight of my year. And look, I look forward to working with her and with members across the House who have a shared commitment and ambition for what we can achieve by empowering our communities to drive the change that they are so desperate to need. This government is committed to it, and we will work diligently and effectively with all members across the House to make that a reality. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Order, order.